The soft chime above the door at Ellie's diner had welcomed thousands over the years. But this morning, the sound held weight, for the man walking in wasn't just another hungry customer. He was Benjamin Foster, the founder of this once struggling diner chain, now a successful name with locations across the Midwest. Dressed in worn jeans, a flannel shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low, no one recognized him, and that's exactly how he wanted it. 15 years ago, Benjamin poured every dollar and sleepless night into this diner. Now, caught up in board meetings and expansion deals, he hadn't set foot in this original location in over a year. But something hadn't felt right lately. Reviews were still glowing, but profits had dropped and employee turnover was rising. He needed answers, and not the kind delivered in a monthly report. So he slipped onto a stool at the far end of the counter, ordering a turkey club with black coffee and a voice roughened just enough to pass as a stranger. Around him, lunch service buzzed, service hustled, cooks called out orders, the register dinged like clockwork. But Benjamin's eyes weren't on the food. They were fixed on a gray-haired man near the sinks, quietly washing dishes with the precision of someone who knew the meaning of pride. Something was off, and Benjamin Foster had a gut feeling that what he uncovered here would be far more important than missing dollars. It might just show him the soul his business had forgotten. The morning rush at Ellie's diner was in full swing. Plates clattered in the kitchen, the scent of sizzling bacon drifted through the air, and the register chimed steadily as regulars filled the booths. Amid the noise and motion, no one paid any mind to the man who stepped through the front door. Worn jeans, a flannel shirt faded with time, and a baseball cap pulled low, he looked like any other blue-collar customer gra. But Benjamin Foster wasn't just anyone. He was the owner of this diner, and 3 others like it. 15 years ago, he'd started with a single location and a single dream, to build a place that felt like home, where hard work was honored and kindness was the rule. Not the exception, but lately, that dream had started to. Sales at this flagship location had dropped. Employee turnover was higher than ever, and though customer reviews still praised the food, something told Ben that numbers weren't showing the. So today, he came without his suit, without his name badge, without the entourage of regional managers. Today, he came as a man with questions, and an awe. Benjamin's coffee sat untouched, growing cold in front of him. His attention was fixed on a man in the back, partially obscured behind the bustle of waitstaff and swinging kitchen doors. The man's name tag read Walter. He was tall but slightly hunched, with thin shoulders that spoke of decades of labor. Wisps of white hair framed his lined face, and he moved with a deliberate care that made him easy to miss in a room full of urgency. But Benjamin didn't miss him. Walter worked at the sink, alone, unnoticed, washing dishes with a rhythm that suggested not just habit, but pride. His hands were red and worn, each motion precise despite the stiffness in his knuckles. He didn't complain when hot water splashed his apron or when trays clanged too close to his ear. He simply worked, quietly, completely. A waitress dropped a tray behind him. Walter turned instantly, catching one of the tumbling cups before it shattered. "It's okay, hon," he said gently. "Accidents happen." She nodded, flustered, and scurried away. Walter returned to the sink. Benjamin leaned back, unsettled. The man was clearly in his 70s, maybe older, and yet no one seemed to be offering him help. Not one employee greeted him. Not one paused to check on him. And yet, customers walking by the dish window nodded at him like an old friend. He smiled back at each one. "Who is he?" Benjamin asked the regular sitting beside him. "That's Walter Greene," the man said, folding his paper. "Been here longer than most of the staff combined. Lost his wife a few years back. Arthritis is killing him, but he won't stop. Says working helps him feel useful. He's one of the good ones." Benjamin turned back to look at Walter, who was now drying his hands, preparing for another wave of dishes. In that moment, the old man wasn't just part of the background, he was the heartbeat of the place. And Benjamin Foster suddenly realized, if something was wrong at this diner, Walter might just be at the center of it. The lunch rush was easing when Benjamin noticed the shift, not in the volume, but in the energy. 2 employees, a cashier named Lindsay and a shift supervisor named Derek, had begun whispering at the end of the counter. They weren't smiling the way coworkers sometimes do when sharing a joke. No, their eyes kept flicking toward the dish station, toward Walter. Their smirks were sharp, calculated. Benjamin sipped his coffee slowly. pretending to read a newspaper someone had left behind. "We're short again," Lindsay said aloud, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. She frowned at the open register drawer. "That's the third time this week." Derek joined her with feigned concern. "That's strange. Last Tuesday we were off by 35. Thursday, same deal. Now today." Benjamin glanced at Walter, who had paused mid-drying a plate, confusion tightening his brow. The old man had clearly heard them. The manager on duty, a woman named Tracy, walked by distractedly. She barely registered the exchange. Benjamin's stomach turned. It wasn't just gossip, it was the beginning of something uglier. A setup. Over the next 30 minutes, Benjamin watched as Derek and Lindsay kept murmuring near the register, exchanging glances whenever Walter passed by. They made a show of rechecking the cash drawer, shaking their heads. At one point, a young mother approached to pay for her meal. She looked embarrassed, counting out change and coming up short. Walter, watching from behind the sink, stepped forward, dried his hands, and slipped Lindsay a few bills from his own wallet. The woman's eyes filled with gratitude. As she left, Derek muttered under his breath, "Guy's gonna go broke saving strays." Lindsay laughed. "He's already broke. Probably sleeps in that rusted-out car." Benjamin said nothing, but inside, something was beginning to burn. This wasn't just disrespect. It was a plan, and it was about to get worse. By late afternoon, the last of the lunch crowd had drifted out, and the hum of the diner softened into a quiet rhythm of clinking plates and mop buckets. Walter was still working, well past when he should have clocked out. Benjamin noticed the way he moved a little slower now, how he winced slightly when bending to reach a tray left on the floor. No one offered to help. No one even acknowledged him. As dusk crept in, Benjamin paid his bill and left a tip, nodding to Tracy on his way out. But he didn't go far. From his sedan parked across the street, he watched as Walter finally stepped out the back door nearly an hour later. Shoulders hunched, carrying a weathered canvas bag, the man shuffled toward a rusted Buick that groaned as it started. Headlights flickering once before stabilizing. Benjamin followed at a respectful distance. Headlights dimmed. Walter didn't head toward any residential neighborhood. Instead, he turned onto a narrow gravel path that ran behind the strip of businesses. At the end of the road, nestled behind a thicket of overgrown trees, sat a small, battered trailer, barely standing, its siding cracked and roof patched with duct tape. Walter parked, climbed the shaky wooden steps, and disappeared inside. One weak bulb flickered on behind the stained curtain. Benjamin sat motionless, hands gripping the steering wheel. This wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unacceptable. How could a man who had given so much, who quietly held together the heartbeat of that diner, be living like this? How had the system failed him? More importantly, how had he failed him? That night, Benjamin didn't sleep. Instead, he made calls, to trusted friends, to local contacts, to people who owed him favors. Whatever it took, he would uncover the full story. Because now, it wasn't just about numbers or rumors. It was about justice, and the quiet man at the sink was going to get it. The next morning, Benjamin Foster arrived at Ellie's diner before the sun had fully risen. He wasn't in disguise this time, not entirely. Same flannel shirt, same old jeans, but beneath that exterior, a plan had quietly taken shape overnight. He had called in a favor from a community outreach coordinator he trusted. They'd found someone, Jessica Miller, a single mother of two struggling to make ends meet. She wasn't an actor, she didn't need to be. Her reality was raw enough. Jessica entered the diner mid-morning, her 5-year-old daughter in tow. They sat at a booth near the register, ordered modestly, a grilled cheese and cup of soup, and when the check came, Jessica did exactly as planned. She came up short by $15. "I'm so sorry," she said to Lindsay, voice barely above a whisper. "My card's been acting up. I thought I had enough." Lindsay didn't miss a beat. Her smile turned icy. "We can't just give away food. Mom, maybe check your wallet next time before you order." The room grew quiet. Walter, drying silverware nearby, looked up. "I've got it," he said softly, already reaching for his wallet. Jessica tried to decline, but Walter placed the money on the counter, offering a kind nod. "Pay it forward when you can." Jessica thanked him, eyes filled with gratitude, and left with her daughter. Derek, leaning against the second register, smirked. "Perfect. He whispered to Lindsay, another 15 toward the total. 10 minutes later, as if on cue, Derek approached Tracy with a concerned look. You might want to check drawer 1 again, he said. Think we're missing another 20. Lindsay backed him up with practiced sincerity. And just like that, the trap had been set. Walter, once again, was in the crosshairs. But this time, he wasn't alone. Benjamin took a deep breath. He had everything he needed. And tomorrow, truth would walk through that diner's front door. By noon the next day, Ellie's diner hummed with its usual rhythm, coffee brewing, orders flying from the kitchen, and customers chatting over bacon and biscuits. But Benjamin Foster wasn't sipping coffee that morning. He was watching, waiting. At exactly 12:05 p.m., Tracy, the manager, emerged from the office. Frowning, we're short again, she announced to Derek and Lindsay. Her voice tight. Another $37. Derek jumped in. Too fast. It happened right after Walter was near the register. I saw him, same as before. Lindsay added. Yeah, I mean, he's always hanging around when things don't add up. Benjamin rose slowly from his booth at the far end. His presence had become routine over the last few days. No longer drawing attention, until now. I think, he said clearly, it's time we stopped guessing and started watching. Heads turned as Benjamin walked to the center of the diner. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. Tracy blinked. Mr. Foster, that's right, he said calmly. I've been here all week. Listening, watching, and recording. With a press of a button, the TV above the counter flickered on. Crisp footage played, Derek pocketing small bills. Lindsay voiding legitimate transactions. Their whispered plan caught with perfect clarity. If we frame Walter, Patricia will have to fire him. Derek's voice said plainly, we split the bonus and get rid of the charity case. A wave of gasps spread across the diner. Customers stood. Staff froze. Walter, still at the sink, turned around slowly, his eyes wide. His hands trembling, but not from guilt, from disbelief. Tracy's hand covered her mouth. My God. Benjamin stepped forward. Walter has been helping customers. On his own time, with his own money, because that's the kind of man he is. He turned to Derek and Lindsay. His voice low but firm. And you, tried to destroy that. 2 police officers entered from the side entrance, called ahead. Just in case. Derek tried to run. He didn't make it far. The next morning, Walter Greene walked into Ellie's diner like he had for the past 7 years, but something was different. This time, customers stood to greet him. Some clapped. Others simply placed a hand over their hearts in silent respect. Word had spread fast. The quiet man at the sink wasn't just a dishwasher, he was the soul of the place. Benjamin invited him into the office, slid a folder across the desk, and spoke gently. You're no longer on dish duty. Walter, starting today, you're our community relations manager, full salary, full benefits, and a team to support you. Walter blinked, stunned. And that's not all. Benjamin continued, placing a second folder beside the first. Inside is the deed to a modest home 3 blocks away. No rent, no mortgage, just gratitude. Walter tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, tears traced lines down his weathered cheeks. For the first time in years, he felt something he had long buried, dignity. Outside, a sign had been added to the wall. The Walter Greene Room, a tribute to quiet kindness. Life lesson for all of us. True greatness isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. Sometimes, it's a man with aching joints, washing dishes in silence, giving what little he has to someone with less. In a world full of noise, kindness is still the loudest language. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment below with a like for Walter. Hit like if you believe quiet heroes deserve to be seen. And subscribe for more stories that prove character, not titles, define who we are.